Welcome everybody to Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions. Today's guest musician is Frank Williams, covering for Butch Thomas, and the topic is learning head charts, beginning jazz standards. This was going to be a second part of Butch Thomas's two-part series on the subject. Everybody will notice that they are muted right now for the courtesy of the session, but if you have questions, we can unmute you. Just use the raise your hand feature, or if you want to chat, use the chat feature to ask a question, and we'll get those questions to Frank. If you have feedback with respect to any of these sessions, or you'd like us to cover a specific topic, email that information to info at clearwaterjazz.com, and we'll be sure to take a look at that and do what we can. Thanks for participating. Check out Clearwater Jazz's education and outreach page for all the upcoming sessions. They are all free. We've got sessions covering all instruments and some sessions that translate really well to all instruments. And they've been really great. We've got a lot of wonderful people working with us on these, and we're excited. We've got Frank Williams with us today covering for Butch. Frank is really special to Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education Outreach. Many of you are familiar with Frank. He is also working with us on this series, but he is integral to producing a lot of our programming, from the History of Jazz Outreach program to the My Journey with Jazz program to the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions and more. He is a 40-year plus educator, and we are just so thrilled to have him part of the team. And Frank, thank you so much for your willingness to jump in at the last minute here. Let's do our best and do what we do best, and that is improvise.
Yes, sir. And let me clear something out to the kids. I'm actually older than what most people think I am. This is actually my 50th year since I started teaching public schools in 1970. So you do the math and you can figure out about how old I am. I started young. I graduated from high school at 17, started college at 17. So I started teaching at 21. It's been 50 years. And I'm still like a kid in a candy store. I love doing this for some reason. So don't ask me why. It worked for me. I hope it works for you. Okay? So we're dealing with these head tunes. And let me give you my first disclaimer about head tunes. A head tune is simply a tune in which you play the head, which is the melody. And normally you play the melody through twice, and then you do your improvisation, and then you do the head twice, and you're done. A lot of people use real books for that. And real books are reliable to a point. Let us understand that what the real books are is pretty much a compilation of student assignments. Yeah, you heard me right. They're a compilation of student assignments. Students were given tunes to go transcribe. And depending on which students did it and who scrutinized them, there is an uneven level of accuracy in those. Basically, you're about 90%, but for the real musician, you don't want 90%, you want 100%. So the recommendation is that you back up any written real book transcription or any other transcription by listening to that original and doing your own fact check. Is this the right note? Is this the right chord? And you will find that there are several different versions, and some of those versions may have some alternative harmonies. So once again, always what I call fact check, which for musicians is ear check. Any written transcription you find, even those found in whatever real book or compilations you may find, in the music store or online. Okay, that is the first disclaimer I want to give you. The first tune we're going to deal with is John Coltrane's Impressions. And it's a very popular one because it only has two chords. This is a period in which John Coltrane was exploring modality, as Miles Davis had opened the door for that with his A Kind of Blue album. So if you are a young jazz aficionado and you're trying to really get your journey started, you really want to have Kind of Blue in your library. And you really want to be listening to it and transcribing from it as much as you possibly can. It's mostly blues-based, but also there's some modality there. Impressions is an extension of that by John Coltrane, who, as you should know, was a participant in the recording of Miles Davis's Kind of Blue album, and it's one of the great saxophone titans of this music. Two chords, D, E flat, D, E flat, D, E flat. So you've got pretty much chromatic harmony and a pretty much very, very simple form that you can use pretty much as an AABA form. D phrase, D phrase, E flat phrase, back to the D phrase. So that's pretty much what that is. And the Dorian mode works very well over both those, as well as blues scales, as well as some different minor scale permeations. At this point, I'm going to slow up because I put a lot of stuff out there. And I don't know who I'm talking to, and I don't know if you're following me or if I need to give a few more primers to guide you, because I don't care how slow we go or how fast we go. I just want to make sure that I take everybody on this journey with me and we all arrive safely, which means we all learned and no one gets frustrated. So this is a time to ask if there are any questions out there so far.
Yeah, so Frank, I just sent out a little chat feature that encouraged people to use the chat feature to ask questions if they have it, and so
Okay.
I'll continue to do that, and I'll bring it to your attention if anyone has any questions. I don't see any coming up, and no one's raising their hand right now, so I think we're good.
Okay. So let me point this out to you. In the early days of my teaching career, somehow the colleges around Erie, Pennsylvania, where I started my teaching career, recognized me as a valuable resource for helping them develop their student candidates who were going to be educators. So even when I taught middle school in the first 8 years of my career, I had a lot of interns. And when I moved to teach high school at Academy High School, most certainly had even more. Matter of fact, I ever have 2 a year, one each semester, different one. I was getting lots of interns, primarily because I had a pretty solid program. I remember this one kid who wanted to be a jack of all trades. He played trumpet, he played saxophone, he played trombone, he played this, he played that. And I frowned upon that. I think you should be a master of one, and then maybe play around with a couple others, but you should master one. He didn't seem to have any one instrument that he was a master of. You have to master at least one, master it. He also could play every scale and every mode and every pattern in every Jamie Aebersold practice method that was available. And Jamie Aebersold is still a great source for jazz improv material. Still a great source. I would really advise you, AEBRSOLD. Find his webpage, look through it. All of his materials are just spot on, okay? He's a player and an educator for many, many decades. His kid could play all that stuff. But if you count off a tune and you ask him to create his own solo, all I can tell you is he sounded bad. He sounded bad, and he was never going to get a gig because no one could really want to listen to what he was playing. And he could play all the scales, all the patterns, do all the chords, do all the theory. He could talk to you about it in great detail, but he couldn't make music with all that stuff. And the one thing that he had failed to do in his passion for mastering all of these techniques and all these various knowledge points is he never really listened to the masters. And he never transcribed the masters. So two things because of that. He did not develop his ear, which comes from trying to match the sounds on recording with your instrument. And he never developed the language which jazz musicians use to communicate in this particular genre, where we put our breath accents, where do we push ahead the time, where do we push back the time, where do we pause, how do we pause, how do we use dynamics, how do we use phrasing, how do we communicate, how do you make a bluesy sound happen, how do I make a light, jovial sound happen. All those things come through transcribing. So no matter what level you are, you need to start transcribing right now, because all the knowledge in the world will not help you if you have not connected to the masters and learned the art of developing your ear and the language that they use to communicate what is deep inside their soul. And at a certain point, the instrument simply becomes an extension of the human being. I remember an interview with Cannonball Adderley where he was standing after a gig and a saxophone still around his neck, and some guy who wanted to be hip but wasn't asked him about what it felt like to be playing the saxophone with such great command. And Cannonball's response was, "What saxophone?" Well, this confused the guy who was doing the interview because he saw the saxophone still hanging around Cannon's neck. He was very confused. We were not. Those others of us who were actually students of jazz, we started laughing at this guy because he missed it. The message in what saxophone was this: when I am playing on stage, I am not thinking about the saxophone. Whatever comes to my mind is going to come out because I have that kind of complete control over this thing you call a saxophone. But for me, this thing you call a saxophone is just a means for me to communicate myself to my audience. It is not something separate from me. It is me. I have complete control over this particular vehicle. And that is the goal of all musicians. I'm going to pause again and see if we have any questions coming through. Anything showing up yet, Steve?
Nope, no questions yet.
Oh man, these guys must know everything. So let me ask this question. Can you identify who's in the room? Maybe I know some of these people, maybe I don't. What age are they? What grade are they? Can anyone actually do that? Tell me what grade they are, what instruments they play, that kind of thing.
Well, there's two people other than Gary who I know, and I think Deb's with us today. There's John and Kenny. Let me see. I can maybe unmute everybody since we don't have a lot of people here.
Yeah.
If
Well,
anyone,
let's just have a conversation.
yeah, see if we can introduce ourselves to Frank and get a
Yeah.
feel where everybody is. So John and Kenny, I've unmuted you both. Welcome to these sessions. Meet Frank.
Hello. I'm trying
Hey,
to figure out how to
I
see
don't
them
know if
up
you,
there. I know there's a button I can press to see them. I hope I don't take myself. Oh, there they. I know I'm seeing some people, I think.
I don't know if you can hear me because I don't have a mic plugged
I hear
in.
you very well. How are you doing,
Oh, okay, I'm John, and
John?
I'm an older guy. I'm in my 60s,
Yeah,
and
cool,
I play drums,
cool.
and been playing jazz for a couple years, but trying to get more knowledgeable and better at it. So
All right. You
I'm
say
in
you play drums. I have a
yeah,
question for
okay.
you. Do you play piano or mallets at all, vibes or anything like that?
Uh, no, well, I mean, I took piano lessons when I was a kid, and I have a keyboard at home, so I kind of know the
Yeah.
notes and things like that, but I don't actually wouldn't say I play it.
Yeah, well, it's like me. It's a tool that I use. You can play chords if you need to.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, as long as you can use it as a tool and you develop your ear and play some harmonies and things like that and play a melody, you know what I mean?
yep,
You
yep,
don't have to go out and play gigs in a nightclub or a lounge or something. Just as long as you can use it as a tool to help you develop your musicianship, then that's really where you are. It helps to practice a little bit, play your little skills and hands and stuff like that so you get more control over it. But no one really expects you to be a performing pianist when your primary instrument is percussion, you know?
yeah.
Uh,
Good.
yeah, my oldest son is a drummer, and he was in my program at Boca Chica High School, and I actually gave him an F in my jazz class. Shocked
Ouch.
him. Yo, yeah, I shocked him really. He got really shocked. Very quiet ride home, and he was a great drummer, but he did not want to learn theory because I mean I'm a drummer. I don't need that stuff, and I just kind of made the point. In my class, you do. So I don't care how well you play drums. I don't care how many Buddy Rich told you can play, or Max Roach, or Elvin Jones. I don't care. What are the notes in the F7 chord? Ah, 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 F. And so you go to his home now, and the first thing you see is a grand piano. Because he's
Awesome.
50 now, he's had time to learn and the evil of his ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, cool. So for drummers, man, it's about the form. You know, the form of the tone. You know how many phrases this particular chord is, how many phrases this chord is, and that kind of thing. So you can help accentuate the phrase and that kind of thing. You're doing really, really good. If you know the harmony and how those chords feel and where the harmonic tension is, and you can help build that tension with your drumming, hey, that's a good thing too. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Who else do we have here in the room?
It looks like, well, we have someone named Kenny who's with us.
Yeah,
I don't know if he has
is
the
he?
microphone capability or not, but he's with us.
All right, cool.
And
Or maybe he can just what he plays or what his age is or something like that.
if you can hear us, Kenny, maybe chat us or unmute yourself. Could get to know you, or you don't feel obligated. And then we have Gary Hallis with us and Deb with Jazz.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and we had another player with us. It looked like a saxophone player from his screen, but he had time limitations and he had to go.
All
So
right,
that's what we got today.
all right. Well, we got what we got. So I'm going to go down Butch's list and just kind of talk through them. And if there are any questions at all, just go ahead, man. I'm a very open guy, and this is something I love. So whatever you need, whatever you want, that's what we do. All right,
Okay, I'll leave.
cool.
I'll leave everybody unmuted right now since there's not a lot of
All right,
people today. So
all right, all right,
unless it gets noisy.
all right. So the next tune we're gonna hit, which on his list, was called "So What," and that is really on the Kind of Blue album, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek tune. It features of all instruments in the world. It features a string bass. And they had PC playing bass, and he played these lines, and the melody is just da da. So the band is saying, "So what?" No matter what he plays, the band just goes, "So what? So what? So what?" Once again, it is two chords, and it's the exact same two chords that John Coltrane used in Impressions. You have a D, move into an E flat. Okay, so the same harmonic structures, the same devices, they work. And it's pretty much the same form as well. And you find that a lot in jazz, where guys will take a harmonic form and then write a new melody on top of that, and that becomes their tune. Because in the business world, lawyers and people like that discovered for us musicians that you cannot copyright a harmonic form. You can be used as many times as you want. The only thing you can copyright is a melody. So you can take anybody's harmonic form and put a melody on it, and it's yours. Just make sure you don't steal too much melodic stuff, because if you do that, then you end up like the guy who wrote the song, "Happy, happy, happy, happy." And you won't be happy when you got to pay back tens of $millions for the Marvin Gaye's family for taking a couple of his licks for one of your biggest hits. So once again, we can take anything you want in terms of form and harmonic structures. We cannot take anybody else's melody. And that is why these two tunes have the exact same harmonic structure, which means all the same devices work, the same, kicks from the drums work in the same places, just a different melody. So you got to deal with the melodic elements and try to add some of those to your recipe for improvisation in that context. Questions, anybody? Okay, I'll keep going. One of the earliest tunes I learned is "Summertime." And I continue to play it from the time I was a kid right up to the present time. Everybody knows it. It's a beautiful melody. It's a beautiful work of art from Porgy and Bess, if I'm not mistaken. And it is often performed in a lot of keys, which gets musicians who play instruments other than drums in trouble. Drummers only play in one key, time. That's it. Either in time or you're not. Either you're grooving or you're not. But all the rest of us, we've got 12 chromatic notes. And we've got all those keys. And then we got the major versions and the minor versions, the modal versions, and all that. So there's all kinds of complications for us. "Summertime" is basically a blues with some 2-5-1s thrown in. What's a 2-5-1? Well, it's a chord built on the second note of the scale, moving to a chord built on the fifth note of the scale, moving back home to the tonic or one of the first note of the scale. It's a 2-5-1. And normally the 2 is a minor, the 5 is a dominant, and the 1 is major. We can go Ionian or whatever you want to really use as a modal form for that major structure. But there are all sorts of books written on just playing 2-5-1s, which makes "Summertime" a little bit more interesting and can be a little bit more complicated and can give you more growth than playing either of the other two tunes that I have mentioned previously. Has more chords, has standard harmonic movements, has majors and minors and half diminished, and has a real sophisticated harmonic form. It's a very beautiful tune, and at the end of the day, it's just a sophisticated blues. So it's the kind of tune you're going to have to analyze, and you're going to have to make sure you understand proper scale, mode, chord application. If you deal with minors chords, you want to deal with Dorians or Aeolians, etc. If you deal with majors, you want to deal with the major scale or Aeolian, or which is a major, but a major form is what you want to use on a major chord. So as long as you got a major third and a dominant five, you're good. Any of the other pitches are just color pitches. So please experiment. Please do experiment. Any questions about Summertime? Great tune. I played it my entire life. The standard keys, by the way, my key is G minor. I'm a trombone player, and it sits right in the middle of the horn. I once went to a jam session with Al Gray, who was the solo trombone player in Count Basie's band for many, many years. Great plunger guy. And me being young and full of myself, of course, I went to challenge him. I wanted to go and put some notches on my gun by blowing Al Gray off the stage. That was a big mistake. I was young and I could play my butt off, but I was not Al Gray. And we played the tune, and I went up and said, okay, man, I want to play it down, which means slow in G minor. And he looked at me and said, oh, this young man wants to try to do me. I got him. So he turned around to the rhythm section that included the great Shirley Scott, and just a great band. Ellis drummer was on the gig. Count Basie's bass player on the gig. Strong band. And he looked at me and he laughed and he tailed to the band. Okay, man, we're going to take it in A minor up, which means we're going to take it up one step from what I want, and we're going to take it real fast, which means I got no time to think. I'm in an uncomfortable key, and this cat goes 1 or 2 or 1, 2, 3. He just counted right off. So there I was going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So my thing was I could transpose. It is important to be able to transpose in various keys. Did everybody hear that? Except for the drummer, who only plays in the one key of time. Everyone else needs to be able to transpose. So I'm transposing the head. I got that. I can do the solo thing too. So I figured the best thing for me to do is that's his key, and he's probably got a whole lot of tricks he's gonna use. So what I would do is cut him off at the path, and I'll take my solo first and put all my tricks down first, and then he will have to follow me and catch up. Unfortunately, he was thinking the same thing. And a couple of measures before the form ended, he just started his solo early, and he put his elbow right in my face so I couldn't step up to the microphone. And that was a very hard lesson for me to learn. The lesson in all of that was we went up and had wine and steak at his expense. He was a really nice guy. And he said, look, young blood, he said, understand something. I've been making a living doing this thing here for 40 years. I'm not going to let some young punk like you walk up on the stage and make me look bad, because this is the way I eat. Have another piece of that steak and drink that wine. We had a great time. I learned a very valuable lesson. You must respect your elders. No matter how good you think you are, if they're out here surviving in this musical world, they got some tricks up their sleeve too. And they probably got a whole lot more tricks up their sleeve than you got up yours. So I hope you'll remember that and not find yourself in the embarrassing position that I found myself in front of a crowd full of people in the place where I live. Those guys are gonna leave. I had to stay there and face some of those people and have them remind me of my getting cut to shreds by Al Gray in public. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Summertime, one of those tunes everybody plays. How much time do we have, Steve?
Well, we got started a little bit late, so we probably have a good maybe 10 minutes left. We really we're not constrained. We don't have a session right after this, so
All right.
I'll let you wind us down when you feel ready.
All right. Well, I'm really trying to wait for questions and that kind of thing. I'm trying to, serve whoever is interested here. So if there are more questions, that's what I really want, and that is going to inform me as to how much time I should take with this. But moving on, Maiden Voyage and Cantaloupe Island, two great tunes. Maiden Voyage has been done by everybody, including Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I have a version of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It's a Herbie Hancock tune. And Herbie also played with Miles Davis, but much later than Kind of Blue. He was in the band that Miles had just before Miles took the retirement from the scene in the late 60s, early 70s. And Herbie went on to become just one of those great legends, both as an acoustic player and as a fusion electric player as well. And he has recorded Maiden Voyage both ways, both on acoustic piano and on synthesizer. These are both modal tunes. Maiden Voyage is very similar, once again, to the other two, Impressions and So What. If I'm not mistaken, it can be found, played most commonly in the same key of D, and uses a very similar harmonic structure, although the groove is quite different. And this one is all about the groove. It's all about more blues scales than modality, and it's all about rhythm and groove. So it's not kind of a bebop or progressive tune. It's more of a bluesy hard bop tune. And hard bop is music created by Cannonball Adderley and Stanley Tarantine and guys like that, where you had a really good backbeat and a really good groove. And you had that whole funk groove going on, R&B groove going on, with jazz layered on top of it. Matter of fact, in that period, Cannonball Adderley had several big hits. One, of course, everybody knows, Mercy, 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 written by the great Austrian pianist, Joe Zawinul, who went on to do Weather Report and so many other great projects, the Zawinul Syndicate, rather. And, we kind of had a tune called African Waltz that he also recorded with a big band, believe it or not. That was a very strong dance hit. They even made a dance called the African Waltz in the 70s as reaction to the whole Black Power movement and Black Pride, and that whole movement took place at that time. And the African Waltz was one of the most popular tunes. And you talk about jazz with a big band and a dance hit. So jazz has not always been relegated to like almost museum music. There was a time when I was a kid that it was pretty much pop music. And these guys did hard bop. They were the last guys who were successful in making that happen, bridging that gap. Maiden Voyage is one of those. Cantaloupe Island, another tune by Herbie, is in that same situation, although Cantaloupe Island has 4 chords. Oh my God, 4 chords. It's still a modal tune. very easy to learn for most people. There's F in there, there's E flat in there, there's D in there, and there's D flat in there. Some are dominant, some are minor. So have fun with that one. It's one of the tunes that I use for developing jazz students. It's a very groovy tune, and it works really well for those people who are trying to learn this music, fall in love with this music, and also maintain a groove. And have chords that last longer than one measure or two beats. Each one of these chords lasts at least four measures, okay?
Frank,
Yeah.
what are some other songs that you stress pretty heavily with your young students as you're developing them for them to get intimately familiar with?
Well, one of them that's still on this list that Bush came up with a tune called Sugar by Stanley Turrentine. It's kind of a medium blues tune. It's also a groove. It was once again, it was pretty much an R&B hit, but it's pretty much jazz blues. I recommend that. It's not as popular as some of the other tunes. A tune that I grew up with, of course, being from Florida, I grew up in love with Cannonball Adderley. So tunes like Sack of Woe is a great tune. Tunes like Jive Samba, another great tune for young kids to learn. Being a trombone player, there was a European trombonist named Kay Winding who had a big hit from a tune from a movie called Coming Home Baby. And that's one of my favorite tunes. It's a standard minor blues tune, but it has what I call a chromatic turnaround. Instead of using a 2/5 for the turnaround, or instead of using a 4/5 for the turnaround, it uses a chromatic from the flat 3 down to the 2 to the flat 2 to the 1. So if you play it in G minor, well, you get it a B flat 7, an A7, an A flat 7, working down to the G minor 7. And the only other chord you got to contend with in that entire tune is the C minor 7, which is a 4 chord. So pretty much there you have a tune with 5 chords that works very, very, very well for young improvisers. It's one of my favorite tunes, and it always has been one of the first tunes I teach young kids, because once again, it's a groovy melody. It's simple, got a great beat, and that chromatic turnaround, you can actually fake it by just playing a G blues scale, or you can learn all of the various mixolydians that are involved in playing across those dominant 7 chords that move chromatically down. So that's one of my favorite tunes. Once again, Coming Home Baby. Any blues tune, as Whit Marsalis has so eloquently stated, jazz is nothing but blues and swing. So there's an old saying that not all blues men can play jazz, but you better believe that all jazz men can play the blues. So any blues tune works. There's just so many others right now. I got a rush of titles, but you know, they're all blues tunes. Bessie's Blues, you know, the modal tunes from the Miles Davis era, John Coltrane era. Those things work very, very well. Yeah, and you will find that a lot of these tunes I'm naming have actually been recorded by people who call themselves smooth jazz people. There was I think he's a guitarist. He called himself Count Basic. I think he called himself, and I thought that was appropriate. And but he actually had a great version of Coming Home Baby, I believe. And there's another guy called Huge Groove, and he had a tune based on some of those hard bop tunes that we're a big hit with. So this music is enduring because it's solid music. So it has endured because it is susceptible to alteration to the various stylistic permeations that we have over time. Any questions, anybody at all?
Frank, let me make a few announcements, and I'll turn it back over to you for maybe some final thoughts. I don't see any specific questions just yet from anybody.
All right.
Well, I know we have at least one drummer with us, and I think there would be particular interest. Hopefully, he's been following some of the sessions we've had with Mark Feynman, which have been great. Mark will be back with us, but the director of jazz down at Gulf Coast University, Florida Gulf Coast University, Brandon Robertson, is going to be with us tomorrow on how to develop melodic bass lines, and then later he's going to be with us on a bass and drum session together which he calls tempos and styles, how to develop endurance during a performance, which I think will be pretty great. But this week we have John O'Leary on piano tomorrow, how to develop a language for improvisation on piano. And then we also have Brandon Robertson with us tomorrow on that baseline session. Dwayne White is with us on Wednesday, this Wednesday at 4:30 on a trumpet session using scales for ideas. And JJ Padishaw is with us on Wednesday of this week with a fundamentals of improvisation on guitar. So check clearwaterjazz.com outreach section for all these great sessions. And we thank our supporters for helping us expand the reach of these sessions, like the Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association, Pinellas Realtor Association, and others. Pinellas Realtor Organization, I should say, and others who are helping us make a difference. So, Frank, I'm going to turn it back to you just to kind of close us out with whatever thoughts you might have. But we really appreciate you jumping in at the last minute today and helping to keep this a very meaningful session and to keep it going.
Yep. All right. So to close this out, I talked about transposition. And here is a message in that everything you play, you should learn it in all 12 keys. I know that sounds scary, but you know what? Start off with the basic band keys. F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and then expand in both directions through the sharp and flat keys. The more flexible you are in terms of the manipulation of your instrument, the better you're going to be in the easier keys. So if you can play in the key of F sharp major, playing in F major is a whole lot easier. So you do want to try to work everything, all of your scales, including the blues scale, in all 12 keys. All of your modes, Ionian, Sidorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, in all 12 keys. Now, that's a lot. I got it. So the most important ones are the major scale, all 12 keys. When you're doing that, you're actually doing all the modes as well. Because if you take a major scale from its second note to the second note, that becomes a Dorian mode. So a C scale has a D Dorian embedded in it. If you take it from the third note to the third note, that becomes a Phrygian. So the C scale has the E Phrygian embedded in it, and the F Lydian embedded in it, and the G Mixolydian embedded in it, and the A Aeolian embedded in it, and the B Locrian embedded in it. So by playing your major scales in all 12 keys, you're also playing all of the modes as well. So then why package a mode? Because they sound different when you play a major scale from 2 to 2 than when you play it from 1 to 1. And it sounds different from 3 to 3 than it does from 2 to 2, etc. And remember what I said about the ear. You always want to be developing the ear, and you can't use these scales and modes and devices unless you understand the flavor they produce in your ear, so that you can appropriate them in the right situations when you are improvising. So that is the important thing. Learn it all in all 12 keys. This was about head tunes. Learn your head tunes in as many keys as you can, and be reminded of the situation I had walking up on Al Gray's bandstand and having him flip the script on me. I asked for G minor, slow, and he gave me A minor, fast. Thank God I knew how to transpose and could play in all 12 keys. It would have been an even more embarrassing night than what I actually had. Okay, any questions?
I think we're good, Frank. If you go to the section today on education and outreach, you can see a link that Butch Thomas has created on our. We've worked with him to put up a Spotify playlist on our Clearwater Jazz Spotify channel with a lot of the songs that Frank talked about today, so you can listen to them. And many of the other educators have done the same thing relative to their sessions. So these sessions are all brought to you by the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, which is the organization that produces the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Music Festival, now in its 41st year, and has as its core and mission education and outreach. So we thank the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation. We thank Frank Williams for being a part of it and for helping with these sessions today. And we hope that you come back for other sessions, including the sessions tomorrow, piano, bass, and a lot more good stuff to come. So, Frank, thank you so much for being with us today. And take care, man.
Yeah, you too now. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Hey, guys, I hope that you learned something from this, and I hope you had some fun, okay?
Stay well, be safe, and keep playing, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Wear a, wear a mask. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Wear a mask. That's good advice too. A little hard when
All right.
when you're playing the trombone. It's a little hard, but you can improvise.
Yeah, just stay 6 foot from the guy you're playing with. That's all.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.
All right, now.